Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's chat. Today I'm chatting with Shailaja V. I'm very excited. Now, can you remind me, you have a great title and I'm having a blank already. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Absolutely, Natasha. First of all, thank you for having me here. So, my name is Shailaja V, and I am a content and productivity coach. I've been blogging for a little over 14 years now, and
Oof.
I've been in entrepreneurship for a little over 3.5 years, almost close to 4 years now. And the thing that I do is that I help other content creators build a systemic, rhythmic content creation schedule while enjoying the process and building an organic audience without the stress and the overwhelm.
I love it. I love it. I feel like we've had such a sort of, I mean, everybody's into being together, but I feel like we've had such similar experiences over time. It cracks me up. And lately I've been seeing heaps of posts from Shailaja about her time off and sabbatical. So um, I love this thing that you've mentioned to me that you want to talk about today, time affluence. I wonder, do you want to unpack that a tiny bit for us?
Sure. So I came across this term time affluence in Ariana Huffington's Thrive, the third
Ah,
metric
yeah.
with success. What I loved about the way she explained time affluence, especially with regard to her own mother, is how her own mother moved through life as though there was all the time in the world,
Mm,
contrasted with her own hurried hustle culture mentality, where she was always, in meetings, ticking things off checklists, whereas her mother had this beautiful, tempered way of living. There was
mm,
no rush, there was no stress, there was no overwhelm. There was just living in the moment, enjoying that moment, and taking the most out of that particular moment.
mm.
And that's when the idea of productivity, especially for me as a woman, really came into play. Because, and I've mentioned this in a couple of other posts on the blog and on Instagram and so on,
Yeah.
how so many of productivity books are written by men, so many of them.
Yeah.
They don't really factor in a lot of what I call the invisible mental workload as far as women are concerned. So I
Yeah.
think the way women are built is that we are constantly in this mode of nurturing and caring for others, even when we don't really want to be. So what happens is we become overwhelmed by all of the things that we have to do. It's like,
Mm,
I need to do this. Whereas I feel when we step back and start understanding that we don't really have to do everything, we just get to do what we should and then let the rest of it go, that's when
mm,
time affluence really comes into play.
mm.
So, in my personal experience and my personal spiritual journey, what I've understood as far as time affluence is concerned is knowing that I have enough time to reach my goals, to help my clients, to be with my family, to create content. So I think when we come from that space of you have enough, you are enough, and you have enough time, the whole concept of time gets flipped on its head. So instead of time, now we have time affluence. So there's this abundance. There's this gorgeous overflow that nature is waiting to give to us, and we just have to be receptive and ready to take it all in and then
Mm.
imbue into our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I mean, just the words as well, like affluence, it just evokes so much of a sense of, rich people who have ease, and because they've got so much money, everything's so easy and good for them. And thinking about time affluence, it feels like something I can have. And it also reminds me a lot of that book, I don't know if you've read it, by Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, and he talks about yeah, that time is really something that we can be the master of. And when you were talking about all of I have enough time for my family, enough time for content, I was just like inhaling and just trying to breathe in that sense of spaciousness, because I think that is the opposite of how I often feel if I'm not really taking charge of my day, if I'm not taking care of myself. I mean, how do you make sure that you feel that sense of affluence?
So one of the things I started doing, and this I would say was about 6 to 8 months ago, was understanding that I don't have to do everything on my list every single day.
Uh huh.
So I started doing what Leo Babauta calls his MITs, the most important tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of making it just one important task per day, I started telling myself I'm going to do three important tasks every day. Three most important tasks. And each of these tasks would fall under each of the categories: work,
Mm-hmm.
wellness,
Mm-hmm.
and growth.
Mm-hmm.
And what I meant by this was, so work would be anything related to my business. So it could be a client call, it could be, creating a content piece, could be recording a podcast, could be doing an interview. I count all of this as a work related important task for that specific day.
Mm.
Truly make time for myself in terms of physical wellness, mental wellness, and spiritual wellness. That could be reading a spiritual book. So that is my dose of most important wellness task for the day. Or it could be just sitting for half an hour in meditation, or doing a 30-minute workout, or going for a brisk walk in the fresh air. So
Mm-hmm.
that's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness. And then what I call growth. Growth is where I feel that there should be something that I do, if, on a personal note, something that I do with my hands, which does not involve using technology. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be cooking, so that could be, picking up something with my hands, effectively doing something which makes me understand that I've been given these tools, these God-given tools, and that I should do something more with them than just be, scrolling it away, spending it away in technology.
Mm-hmm.
So when I end my day and I tell myself, I've done these three things for the day. I've done one work task, I've done one wellness task, and I've done one personal growth task. I end my day with the satisfaction that I've done enough.
Mm.
I've done enough, I've been enough, and I am enough. And what that does is it makes me feel comfortable about not worrying about things like, oh, I have to do all of these things before, say, a course launch, or I have to do all of these things before I prepare for my client session tomorrow. So having that joyful productivity, as our coach tells us, included in our calendar on a very consistent and a very comfortable basis, and which is why each person's calendar, your calendar, my
Mm.
calendar, my client's calendar, they're all going to be different.
Mm.
But the binding force is understanding how that rhythm can work for you and make it work for your life.
Mm.
That's
Thank you. I love that. That feels so achievable as well. And it reminds me, like yesterday in the group program, my group program was talking to people about the weekly review and how sometimes when I'm planning for the next week, I intentionally choose things that I know are going to be really easy that I'm going to do anyway, so that when I come back next week, I get that celebratory feeling and how helpful that is to just sit in that moment of acknowledging I am doing these things and these are the goals that I set. And see, I really am taking the right action and just how good that feels. It's taken me a long time to get there.
I think all of us go through that in different phases of our journey. So back in 2018, when I launched my business, so there was this pressure, this external pressure, as well as some amount of internal pressure, which said that I had to be doing, A, B, C, D, E in order to market my work, be out there, push myself out there. And while it didn't really feel comfortable, I did it anyway. But it was only when I stepped back from that and I started listening truly and deeply to what felt right for me, my personality, my experience, so I could bring that authenticity into my work as well. So I was
Mm,
no longer telling people, to, burn the midnight oil, stay up late, do all the hard work, create even if you don't feel like it. So I stopped doing all of that because I started saying, you know what, you shouldn't do anything if you don't feel like it. You start doing it because you enjoy it, and you continue doing it because it gives you joy. I
mm,
think that's the rhythm that we have to really find for ourselves. And
mm,
that means letting go of certain things that the world says is important
mm,
or urgent,
mm,
and try to listen and ask yourself, what do you think is important? So the world could be telling me that I should be creating content every single day, 5 days a week, or 7 days a week, 30 days a month. But if my personal philosophy says it's perfectly fine if you create 2 days a week, create one blog post a week, one podcast episode a week, and take your time enjoying it. I feel there's so much more happiness when we find our rhythm instead of
mm.
following the dictates of what society or the world at large expects us to do.
100%. And I think just hearing you say that reminds me that I think a lot of those, this much content this many times a week, is coming from people with a very different amount of time per week for their business. I know you're a parent as well. I'm a parent, but I also have other health stuff going on. And just the way I am as a person, I don't think I can just get up and hustle. So I have had times where I felt so affronted and really hurt and just not good enough because of all this external pressure to do things. And I've had to completely change what I set as, like, as you say, I've chosen what my bar is and I've chosen how much output. And that's come through a lot of experimentation as well, of just having absolute rubbish weeks and burnout and finding things way too hard and then just going, oh, this is mental, and almost having to start from nothing again so many times, like an embarrassing number of times I've burnt out. So
right? And here's the beauty about it. All of this is meant to happen. All of this
yeah,
is meant to be.
yeah,
And the really interesting thing that I've noticed is whether I take a 1 week break or a 2 month break or a 60-day break, it doesn't really matter, because the people who truly matter are in touch with you. They
mm,
wait for you. They listen to your content. And I've tested this not once, not twice, multiple times in the past year and a half. And every single time I take a longish break, and especially if I take an unannounced break, I'm almost always, inundated with messages from well-wishers asking if everything is okay. They're not asking
oh,
what happened to your content. They're asking me what happened to you.
yeah,
So I'm talking about building those kinds of relationships, that kind of solid connection with people, which doesn't rely on you having to be visible all of the time, just be there, do this. It's not that. It's more listen deeply to your soul and manifest what is natural to you. I think that's very important.
I mean, that makes me think of the second thing you said you wanted to talk about, which is stillness. Just even hearing you speak and being with you, I get a sense of your inner stillness. And I wonder, people might just think, what's stillness got to do with business? So I'd love to hear you speak about that and what you had in mind.
It's perfect that we're recording this today, which is pretty much after an entire month of stillness with my own content, my own business. Actually, I completely took a step back, except for 1 or 2 client sessions which had been pre-scheduled. So I took a complete step back from creating, so from the what I call the wheel of creation. So I told myself, no content, no audio, no video, no presence visibly anywhere, but just being still and listening to what you think you should be saying. And how do you want to say this? How do you want to convey this to the people who truly matter? And I believe the more we stay with that sense of stillness, for me, that could be divinity. For you, that could be, higher power. For other people, it could be a different sense of consciousness. For more people, it could be something just like, I'm tired of hustle marketing and I want to just slow down and stop and listen and try to figure out what is it that my path is. In fact, I just published a post late last night about why I decided to take what I call a solopreneur sabbatical. I've taken social media sabbaticals, but why I took the solopreneur sabbatical and what it was that truly spoke to my being. So this stillness, especially in a world that is so, I would say, overwhelmed by the idea of movement. There's so much movement, right? This constant connectivity. So it's always a question of, when you wake up, how have you checked your Instagram? Have you checked your Facebook? Have you checked your Twitter, your email, your WhatsApp? So there's always a sense of connectivity. But you and I, we've lived in an age when there was no internet. We're lucky to have grown up in a time when we didn't have the internet, when we had to wait for 3 weeks, 5 weeks, perhaps, for a letter to reach us. I'm from a friend across the ocean, and I think about the amount of patience and discipline we've built and the scope for creativity that it allowed us, that space, that abundance. So when I took this conscious decision to practice more stillness, I started realizing it shouldn't be a one-off thing. It shouldn't be a 1 month, stillness sabbatical. It should be something that should be an integral part of my day-to-day existence. So
Nice.
I have pockets of my day when I practice stillness, when I'm doing nothing. I'm not doing anything. I'm not reading a book. I'm not watching TV. I'm not meditating. I'm just sitting still and listening. I'm listening to the universe. What is the universe truly trying to tell me? And you and I know, as a parent, it's never perfect, right? You are never going to be having all of it in control all of the time, because if
Yeah.
you are, that means, that means you're not human. It's as simple
Yeah,
as
maybe the
that.
kids are in the cupboard or something.
Exactly. And I have a teen, so that's a whole other it's a whole other world of rebellion, and where she's trying to find her own space. And how do we let that happen unless we allow ourselves to be still? Because when I've noticed in all relationships, whether that's between me and a client, or me and a colleague, me and my spouse, me and my child, if we're always talking to each other, nobody's really listening, because you're always talking. Pause, and if we let the other person speak and let the silence do the work for us, it's amazing how much more we become compatible with another person's thoughts, and how much more we're able to understand things from their perspective. So let's say I have an argument with my child, right, about something trivial, something about putting clothes away in the wardrobe or something like that. Now, it's going to be a loop if every time I walk in and I say, oh, you've left the clothes out again and you've not put them away. No wonder you're having trouble in the morning, finding your clothes for school. So blah, blah, blah. And that's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But let's say I step back and I let her explain why is it that she doesn't get time to put things away. She could be studying, she could have had a long day. She just didn't feel like it. And I let the silence do the guiding at that time. So I tell her, it's okay. And I step back. And I've noticed this over and over again. The more still I am, the more people understand and the more they come back. The more they come, say, I don't think that was a great interaction. Why don't we try again? So, whether that's a personal one or a professional one, I think space and stillness is something that we have to allow both ourselves and with others. Boundaries, some of us call it boundaries, but I prefer to call it space and stillness. Because when we don't do that and we're always in each other's space and we're always visible, always out there, it doesn't allow us to tap into what I call the truly divine message, which is you are not all of this. This isn't who you are. We are here for a higher purpose. We are here for doing something. We're here to serve people. We're here to serve the people we are living with, the people we work with, the people we work for. And I think once that happens, all of these other things completely fall off the grid. In fact, even about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was actually actively telling people how to uninstall an app from their phone and make sure that they're not constantly on it. And I realized while those are what I call strategies or tools or tricks, it doesn't really strike at the heart of the problem, which is why are you getting distracted in the first place? It's because we don't want to be bored. We don't want to be still. So I think that is the root that has to be tackled. So now, even if I have the Instagram app on my phone, it doesn't really matter because I don't even remember the fact that I have it on the phone unless I need to post something, unless I need to put up something on stories. So it's there, but I don't have to worry about it. It's just a tool now. So I think once we transition from I need to use Instagram every single day to, oh, I just have to use it when I need it. Does that distinction make sense? I think
100%.
once we transition to that, it's no longer a question of looking at an external symptomatic solution to the problem, but it's more an internal, you know, out going outwards from within solution. So where is the problem really? Where is the challenge really? It's understanding that it's within us, and what is it that we're running away from. So picking up an app, scrolling through your phone, what are you running away from? You're running away from boredom, you're running away from feeling alone, you're running away from that sense of isolation. But what if we looked at boredom and aloneness and stillness as gifts, and we started saying, oh, this is what it is all about. So this is the joy that I get after reading a book, and I can sit still and just let all of it just completely filter in. I don't have to worry about, oh, okay, I finished book one, now it's time to read book two. No, it's book one, and I'm going to take an entire week to process everything that I've learned from this book. I'm going to go back and read everything that I've underlined. I'm going to go back and figure out, why was this book so beautiful? Why did I really relate to it? And as we age, as we grow older, we have the benefit of this kind of, well, dare I say, wisdom.
Yeah.
uh, I would say that it won't happen when you're much younger, because when you're much younger, in your 20s and in your early 30s, it becomes a question of, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then slowly we transition to, I am this.
Mm.
Let me be this. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong with the way I am. I don't have to be doing all the time. It's perfectly fine to be.
I think that I relate to so much of that. I think it's a massive ninja move. I think some people are just like, it sounds to me like a massive personal transformation that you've rewired yourself in a way. And I one thing that came to me as you were speaking is, yeah, you can teach people to take things off your phone, or you can teach people, like you can tell people things, but when you lead by example, it's much more potent. And I think you've been inspiring me with your stillness and your devotion to things other than business. And I think that's where we can be more helpful, is when we live what we teach, and when we live a certain practice. You don't even have to tell anybody how to uninstall the app, because they're going to be asking you, like, what are you doing, how are you doing that? And that's more inspiring, and
Exactly.
it teaches more than even teaching people how to do the small tactical moves. So I love that. Thank you. Oh, I just want to give that a minute just to settle in. I think that was really potent, and I think that will really resonate for people. Thanks.
Together.
I think as I've been aging as well, I'm a bit perimenopausal now, and I've had a lot of fog, and sometimes I can't make sentences, and then I can't remember things. And I said to my husband, I think I'm like moving into an era where I don't really need to talk anymore, and then I'm like moving into a more spiritual realm where I'm just in my being, like just like you said, and I don't really need to worry about, like, it's like, oh, don't worry about the verbal realm or the memory realm. I can just leave all that behind and just go into this new, open, and more cosmic realm. And that sort of reminded me of that as well when you were talking about just not needing to speak to communicate, that there's a lot going on in the stillness. And thank you.
An article with you, which I really love, which says,
Mm.
if you are an old soul, what are some of the characteristics that seem to indicate that you are an old soul? And this article came to me, during the period of stillness this past month, and it resonated so deeply, because whereas all of these other coaches, many of the coaches that I know of, are talking about, growing your followers, growing your subscribers, growing. So it's growth, 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 which isn't anything wrong by itself. But there's an interesting paradox I've understood as a part of this particular stillness, and it's when you focus on your own spiritual growth, your personal growth, all of those other things happen even without you really trying for them. And that's the joy, and that's the fundamental, shall I say, happiness that I want for my own clients, for my own customers, for my own people who are struggling with this message that you have to earn more, you have to grow more, you have to have more followers, you have to have more subscribers. And somehow I don't think that's the answer. It's not more, more, more. It's, what if you have 25 followers on Instagram, but there are 25 people who are waiting to hear from you? I mean, that's far more valuable than telling people you have 25,000 followers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's still a that's still a metric that's dictated by society. So it's a metric that says you have X number of followers, therefore you are this worthy. That's no different from grades or rewards or
Mm.
awards, as far as the external world, which the external world loves to bestow on people. It says, once you've made it, you're 40 under 40, you're Forbes 40 under 40, and you've made it. So does that mean that if I only get my brilliant business idea when I'm 60, that I'm any worse off than if I had got it at 35? I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think each of us have our own path of evolution.
Mm.
And I think embracing that path is a very core necessity as far as finding happiness in your own work is concerned.
Totally. And I just did a post yesterday on Instagram about Santosh, which you probably know, Santosha, just about contentment and just being enough, like wherever you are in your business. It sounds so cheesy, but actually it is perfectly fine. And that if I'm sitting in a place of contentment, then I'm just sort of immune to all these weird marketing messages that, I mean, you know, big companies who really know how to do their market research know exactly how I'm feeling. They want to sell their course to me. I can look at anything now because I have a rock solid plan. I understand where I'm at and I know what I need to do next. And I am practicing contentment more and more. So I feel like when I feel in energetically, that contentment state is, it feels still as well. You know, I think it's a very similar state of just, I'm not striving. I'm just okay and I'm playing. It's playful and it's an adventure. It's sort of something I'm testing and I'm happy to do it, but I don't need to. Like I'm not feeling like any force or anything. It just feels like I'm content. I'm very content.
It's meant to be. You're
Yeah.
right where you are. I mean, that's the beauty of stillness.
Yes, it is. But let's talk about growth anyway, because we were going to talk about organic audience growth. And I'm glad you said that you wanted to talk about that because I get so cynical about organic growth sometimes because, and I know you've had a lot more experience with it, that you have a big blogging career behind you and, well, and ahead as well, probably. So you're very experienced at developing an audience of people through organic growth. Just in case anybody doesn't know, I would just say organic growth just means that your Instagram followers or your blog followers would grow naturally without paying for it. That's the main distinction. Whereas other growth could happen, you know, by buying, like paying for ads, or some people buy followers, which I would never recommend. But that's what we mean by organic growth, right?
Exactly. And uh, for the longest time, I believed I was doing it all right. I was doing it all the way it was meant to be. And then when I started listening to some of the marketing messages, the mainstream marketing messages, which told me, if you don't have 10,000 followers, I mean, do you even exist on Instagram? And then started making me, started making me believe in this imposter syndrome. And it's incredibly sad to learn how even a falsehood repeated enough number of times can start sounding like the truth.
True.
And that's the fear mentality that marketers, that non-ethical marketers play on. And when I started listening to that, I said, "Oh, you know what? You're right. I only have 3K followers on Instagram. So, I mean, how can I tell people about organic growth? And how
Uh,
can I about that was the kind of mentality that was running through my head. But once I started listening to the concepts of authenticity and organic growth, and I started saying, you know what, this is who I am. This is who I am. And I can't tell people that, they will make six figures in 6 months, because that doesn't seem like a that doesn't seem like a sustainable, viable strategy without organic growth behind it. So yeah, I can teach you how to, do a tripwire. I can teach you how to, do a lead magnet or a freebie. And I did it all, but I never felt comfortable about it.
Same.
All of it, and I completely stopped using freebies or lead magnets to grow my newsletter as well. And now I just talk to my audience. So my newsletter every week, every Friday, which will go out today, uh, is something where I'm just conversing with my audience. I'm just talking to them. I'm just telling them, hey, this is what I do. And then I realized I could do an ethical way of talking to my subscribers. I can market to them as long as I clarify that I am going to be marketing to them. So, in other words, what I started doing was I started doing two separate newsletters. I
Yeah.
started having one newsletter, which was just me, having a coffee table conversation with my readers. We're all just sitting around reading the same things that I've written or what I've read. And then I started having what I call a marketing newsletter, and I made it very clear on the sign up page. I told them, when you sign up for my marketing newsletter, you're going to hear me talking about my courses, my products, my launches, in addition to courses, products, and ideas from other people that I will recommend. So these will be affiliate links. So, in other words, once I started using complete transparency in my marketing, it became very organic and natural for my audience to gravitate towards me.
Mm.
And I never gave them the option of needing to stay connected with me just through the newsletter. So I said, you don't have to be on the newsletter. You don't have to be following me on Instagram. You don't have to be, following my blog. If at any time you feel compelled to just reach out and say, you know what, I'm struggling with something, can we do a quick, one-on-one conversation where you can help me out? So I have these one-on-one sessions where I can help people. No strings attached. You don't have to sign up to be on the newsletter. You don't have to. So I think that kind of transparency is something that I advocate and I teach.
Mm.
And that's what really helps people grow their audience organically. So the ones who have seen growth, my clients who have seen growth, have all come back to tell me that they're actually finally happy with just the number of followers that they have, because they say, you won't believe the kind of quality conversations I'm having with some of these people. People who are
Mm.
reaching out and telling me, you spoke my mind, you just manifested what I was thinking, or you answered a query that I had in my brain and you just put it out there. So that's the kind of connection I'm going for. That's the kind of connection that I want business owners to have with their clients. Not the shiny object syndrome, not the idea of 10,000, 25,000, 50,000 followers or subscribers, but connecting with the people you already have. In other words, how do you make your audience your family? How do you
Mm.
make your audience your friends?
Mm.
How do you make them the people whom you can call up and reach out to when you're stuck and you say, you know what, I'm struggling with something, can you help me out with this? And these are the people who will gladly do it, because
Mm.
you've done all of this with no expectation of anything in return. But they're the people you can count on, and that's family, right? Family is there for you no matter what. They're not doing
Mm.
it because you're family, they're doing it because they love you, they're doing it because they care for you, they're doing it because you care for them. And I think that kind of relationship building is what I teach when it comes to organic growth. So I don't
Mm.
promise number of followers or number of subscribers, but what I
Mm.
do guarantee is that the people who start following you after you start implementing the strategies that I teach will be the ones who want to follow you, not because they have to follow you. I hope
Mm.
that things into that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really inspiring. I've noticed lately when I'm helping a few clients with their ads or just looking at the way people have been posting in general. And when they post on Instagram and it's all giving really good, helpful information, but at the bottom there's a call to action, it feels like, oh, it feels different, right?
I
And so
know.
I've been trying to encourage people to help with the ads as well, but just in general, I'm like, you can just give help in that post, and then when it's offer time, you can just offer. You don't have to hide the offer in giving. It's confusing. When I see those posts, I feel really hurt. It's like, oh, you're helping me. It feels so good, but really you're just sort of asking something in a guised way. So I'm very interested in that as a newsletter approach. I hadn't thought of doing it in that context, and I love that idea. Mm.
Yeah. So what I do is at the bottom of my weekly newsletter, I tell people that I do have a separate marketing newsletter, which they're welcome to sign up for. And my marketing newsletter actually has a double opt-in and a capture, because I want people to be really sure that they want to be on the list. And I
Nice.
don't want bots, because there's always a problem with email service providers and bots. So you have to ensure that they really want to be on the list.
Mm.
And invariably, the ones who sign up and the ones who get on that list are some of the most loyal people in my
Mm.
audience. They're the community that I can fall back on. They're the community I reach out to when I'm doing my market research. They're the community I reach out to when I want feedback on something that I'm experimenting with, and I want some beta testers. So I have that community.
Mm.
So, and the reason I believe building an email list, however small, it doesn't have to be large. For instance, I have about 600 people on my main newsletter, and I have approximately 200 people on my marketing list. But these are the people that I can completely rely on, and I don't have to worry about whether my social media account goes down tomorrow,
Mm.
because I know that these people will find me, find my work, connect with me, irrespective of whether I'm active on social media 5 days a week, or putting up YouTube videos every week, or even doing a podcast every week. They are the people who are going to say, we hear you, this is what we can help you with, and this is what you can help us with. So there's a symbiotic relationship between us.
Yeah. And when you explained before, like the kind of following, where, you know, someone just posts something and it's exactly what their client was thinking. I mean, it reminded me so much of my relationship with my audience. I feel so connected with them now, and I do just feel genuine care for them and from them, and it's very rich. So I guess I have had dilemmas occasionally, like, oh, the size of my following or the size of my list, or, you know, oh, the amount of growth or the amount of revenue. But it's sort of easy to let that go because I am so super connected to my people. And the more I get in my sort of self-righteous rants about things, or whenever I think I'm going to post something that's a bit kooky and I get worried that everyone's going to freak out and think I'm a nut, the deeper our relationship gets, the more they go like, yeah. So I just find more community and more connection as I get more courageous to be more authentic. So
Exactly.
yeah, it does happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's the thing, right? But a lot of people aren't patient enough. So one of the things I want to teach them is that patience. And it's how you need to do the right things for your business instead of focusing on what I call the vanity metrics. Don't worry about the vanity metrics. Don't worry about the number of likes on your post, the number of comments. That's not important. Focus on the conversations, focus on the questions which people are asking you, because that's when you can help them. When somebody sends you a message saying, I'm struggling with this, in your context it could be somebody saying, I'm struggling with this technical issue on WordPress and I don't know how to troubleshoot it, and do you have something that could help me? Do you have a video or a tutorial or a blog post which I can read? And that's when you know that your work is having an impact. And I think that's the most important thing. And while it's taking time, I believe the world is also slowly moving away from the hustle marketing culture,
I hope so.
moving towards the more authentic approach. And we're always going to have people following the mainstream and hustle marketing techniques. But that's good for us, because then we can tell people that isn't what I am. That isn't who I am. That isn't what I do. This is the path that I take. And you'll notice that only the people who really are willing to throw in that kind of commitment will be the ones who stick with you. The others won't, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with them either. It's just going to take them time to find the rhythm that works right for them.
Well, thank you. I feel so just juiced up and calm, and I've had such a lovely conversation. So thanks heaps, Shailaja, for your time.
Absolute pleasure, Tasha, and I'm so grateful to have been here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, have a beautiful afternoon, and I'll see everyone later. Thanks heaps. Oh, before we go, let's just say where people can find you. Obviously, if it's I just was all blissed out, that's all. Now I remember business. So in the podcast links and on the website as well, I'll put some links for your current work, so your website, Instagram, and podcast. And is there anything that you're promoting at the moment that you want to mention to people?
Not particularly right now, but I do have an evergreen course called the Intentional Instagram course for business owners and solopreneurs.
Nice.
Teach people how to organically grow their audience on Instagram and connect with their true audience as well. So that's something that people are welcome to check out on my website. That's shailajav.com. And of course, on Instagram, it's the same handle, Shailaja V, and LinkedIn as well. So yeah, you can find me.
Awesome. Thanks heaps, Shailaja. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
See ya. Where's my